You are now listening to Cryptid Cocktail Party. Creatures, let's meet for a drink. It's a treat. Join us in the fight. Cryptid Cocktail Party. Cryptid Cocktail Party.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Cryptid Cocktail Party, a show where we have a few drinks, share a few laughs, take a dive into the unknown. I'm your host, Dave. Finally joined once again by my wonderful co-host, Sarge. How was Puerto Rico, Sarge?
It's a beautiful place, man.
Yeah?
There's fucking chickens everywhere.
That sounds awesome. It sounds like
It's so awesome. Like, it sounds like my coworkers at first thought I was like making fun of it. And I was like, no, you don't understand. There is nothing cooler than just like big ass chickens just fucking hanging out. Like, they have a lot of stray cats down there too. And the chickens are like twice the size of the cats.
the chickens keep the cats in line, probably.
Right. And I adapted so quickly to their method of driving, which is just go. And people will get out of your way.
How is it any different than driving in a city?
Because they don't have streetlights.
Well,
And no one uses their directional, which is a lot like Rhode Island, but not a lot like anywhere else I've ever been.
I feel like it's the same concept. No one uses their fucking turn signals in Philly, and lights are more of a suggestion than anything around here. I don't know.
So if you want to like change lanes in Puerto Rico, you just have to gently guide your car into the next lane. And the guy directly next to you will either speed up or slow down to accommodate you. But if you put on your directional, I feel like then they're like, no, I'm not moving.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because that way you're intentionally an asshole and not
Exactly.
causing an accident.
I also, I went to a bar called El Batey,
Okay.
where Hunter S. Thompson and the Rolling Stones and Allen Ginsberg used to drink. I got super lit,
I believe that.
but not uncontrollably like gringo misbehaving lit.
Oh,
I
see.
did not want to embarrass myself in Puerto Rico.
That's where we differ. I would have fucking blacked out. I mean, not that I get like violent or angry. Or
No,
anything like
you
that.
don't. You don't. I just didn't want to like annoy anyone. I didn't want to piss off the locals. So I was just very quietly, extremely drunk.
I would just start screaming like, "Where's the touch tunes? I got to listen to fucking Higher by Creed or some shit like that."
But the bar's cool because it only plays like rock music.
Okay.
And the drinks are really inexpensive. I had like 4 gin and something. The first night I went there, I had rum and cokes, and that was like, I want to say $40 with tip.
For how many?
And then the next night I was there, I was drinking this gin drink that somebody made for us at another bar, and the bartender seemed to know what I was talking about, so he made them for us. And man, did we have a good night.
Did the bar like have any like, was there like fucking like old New York fucking delis where there's just photographs of all the famous people that went there, or is it just like stories were told about?
You know
these
what's funny is the
places?
bar actually had photographs of just like locals drinking there, which I thought was actually really cool.
I feel like
They had like a couple character drawings of like Allen Ginsberg and Hunter S. Thompson.
yeah.
But what I loved the most was just there was handwriting all over the walls. Like people just take Sharpies and write on the walls.
I like that.
So I made sure to write Cryptid Cocktail Party on the bar, and Sarge was here.
I do like.
So if you ever go to El Batey, go sit by the window and show us some love.
I can't get over the chickens though. It reminds me. Did you ever play Fable?
Dude. Yes. Yes. Chicken chaser.
It just reminds me of just like one big Fable island.
Yeah, but I would not kick any of these chickens because especially the males, the roosters, the cocks, if you will, had gigantic fucking claws.
Oh yeah.
They were terrifying.
Plus, they're probably like fucking as dense as a bowling ball. You probably break a toe.
Oh, they were beefy, man. These chickens were fucking beef machines.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad you had a good
they
time.
were also pelicans.
Okay.
I've seen them. I've seen pelicans before, but I got to see these pelicans like actually eating, so they like come down and they scoop up out of the water. That was really cool.
Oh, that sounds awesome, man. Well, I'm glad you had a good time. I'm
Yeah.
glad the wildlife, or I guess half wildlife. Chickens are pretty domesticated. Well, I guess not
Yeah.
those ones. Those are as free
They're
range as you
popular.
can get.
Like
yeah.
people love them. The locals that I work with were telling me that like they're just very they're like part of the culture.
Yeah.
And so I was very respectful to the chickens as well. I love them. I wish I had one because they're so cool.
Well, maybe one day. Maybe one day.
They're black too. They're like jet black. The female chickens are all jet black, and then the males have like all kinds of wild colors.
What are they, those silky chickens or whatever? No.
They're beautiful, whatever they are.
All right. Well, I'm glad you had a good time. I missed you.
Yeah. I miss you. I missed recording. I wish I could have recorded down there, but I was on a plane trying to beat the blizzard.
Oh yeah, that sucked. But yeah, no, Brennan Storr from the Ghost Story guys filled in, and he did a pretty good job of being
He did a fantastic job.
being a Sarge proxy, I guess.
The good news is I don't intend on missing any more episodes for quite a while, so I think we're in good shape.
Well, that's good. Well, we're gonna do something a little different today, Sarge.
Okay.
This is part one of a two-parter that we're gonna do.
Oh,
We're gonna be doing it's gonna lead into hauntings, but I feel like before we get to that, we have to kind of talk about the history of what we're gonna be talking about. And this week we're gonna be discussing Eastern State Penitentiary. Are you familiar with Eastern
I've
State?
heard of it.
Okay.
Didn't fucking Zach Dildo Baggins do an episode there?
I don't know if he did. He probably fucking why not? Ghost Hunters did a long time ago, and they captured.
Clearest EVP, right?
No, they captured what is probably like the best video footage of like a full body apparition I've ever seen in my entire life. It's fucking
All right,
crazy.
I'll have to look that up because I love it when there's a full body apparition. That's
Yeah.
always like the coolest thing. Like I always get so excited.
Like I think it's like one of the most like like that piece of footage is like now in ghost hunting history, like as definitive like proof. It's fucking crazy.
Well, that's because most ghost hunting shows like you get a piece of dust that's reflecting light and they're like, look, it's a ghost orb. No, it's not, you fucking clown. It's dust.
This is pretty crazy. It like runs towards the camera, then like runs back. Like it's fucking, there's like motion and movement. It's wild. But
all right.
Yeah, so
I'm going to look that up.
We're going to be talking about Eastern State Penitentiary. It's not far from me. I've been there a few times, walked around, never like at night, but like I did the tour. The tour's pretty cool. The audio tour, if you do it, it's narrated by Steve Buscemi.
Even better. Even better.
It's pretty good. But yeah, so I figured part one, what we do is we just talk about the prison, how it started, where it went, what went on there, that kind of stuff. And then, you know, once you understand the history and kind of like that, I think we can understand the hauntings a bit better, I feel like. So we're going to do it that way.
And to demonstrate my maturity, I won't make any prison sex jokes.
I mean, it's going to be hard because we'll get into it.
Well,
it's not good. Hold on.
Dave, come on. You know,
I'm saying it's going to be hard to make those jokes.
There you go.
Because of how the prison kind of operated through most of its time.
Okay. All right.
But before we start, I guess this goes without saying, I am in no way a fucking historian.
You know what? That's so weird. I thought for sure that you had received a degree from some highfalutin historical university.
No, I watch a lot of documentaries.
Girl, same.
I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I read a lot of just internet articles and stuff like that. So if some of this information is wrong, like dates or something like that, or if I just get something, just remember, I got all of this from my my quote unquote research that I did, which was read stuff online, watch some documentaries, and listen to a few podcasts.
I mean, frankly, that's how I do my research, and I feel like that's how most YouTubers do their research. So I think we're okay.
I'm just saying, if anyone's got a problem with this, write me a strongly worded email at cryptidcocktail@gmail.com.
Yes, and we will read it on air.
Yeah.
And tell everyone.
All right, Sarge. So how did Eastern State Penitentiary come to be? It didn't just fucking show up out of nowhere. Well, to answer that, we need to go back almost 50 years before the prison even opened. In the late 1700s, reformers in Philadelphia started thinking, hey, you know what? Maybe the way we've been punishing people just isn't it. Executions and whippings were nothing more than just public spectacles. Jails were just overcrowded holding pens for anyone and everyone, regardless of your age or the severity of your crime. Like an 11-year-old kid who stole a pie from a windowsill was thrown in with a 37-year-old man who just got done murdering his entire family. It wasn't a great system. Yeah, and it definitely didn't help anyone, especially in the reform area of what prison should be.
Right.
So in 1787, a group called the Philadelphia Society of Alleviating the Miseries of Public Prisons.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's they didn't really work on brevity when it came to naming
this. That title is a handful.
Yeah. They formed and started pushing for something different. Among the people involved in this group were Dr. Benjamin Rush and Ben Franklin, because that motherfucker just had to have his hands
Good old Ben
in everything. Now, this group's goal was all about transformation. They believed that punishment should produce repentance, which is actually where the word comes from. I guess the concept was that someone would become penitent when in a penitentiary, ideally. So instead of humiliating or straight up murdering someone in public, the theory was that structured isolation would force prisoners to reflect on what they had done to wind up there. Does that make sense?
The Russian system.
Yeah. So if you remove the noise, the influence of other prisoners, and just kind of strip everything down to the individual and their consciousness, then they would have no choice but to reflect and see the error of their ways. At least that's what the theory is anyways.
I remember hearing something about this.
Yeah.
Sounds like a bad idea.
Yeah.
It's basically solitary confinement.
Maybe we'll get there.
Okay.
There was an early attempt to implement this new theory at the Walnut Street Jail in the 1790s. And at first, the reformers saw what looked like promising results. But not long after that, overcrowding and administrative problems cut their little experiment short. But instead of just abandoning the idea of isolation as punishment altogether, they thought, well, what if we just build a place of our own and do this whole forced isolation shit whole hog? Which is exactly what they did. And so they got to work, and they got to work pretty fast. By the early 1820s, lobbying for the new facility started to gain momentum, and eventually it got the green light. Then a design competition for the new prison was held. And
a design competition?
Yeah, why not? Let's have fun with it. And architect John Havlin's plans were selected on May 24th, 1822. The cornerstone was laid in 1823, and on October 25th, 1829, Eastern State admitted its very first prisoner. And the building itself, like the design of it, was an expression of like the philosophy that they were trying to instill. It was constructed in what's known as a hub and spoke layout, with the cell blocks extending outward from like a central like circle. Yeah. And from that center point is what essentially is a panopticon. It's not a true panopticon, but and for anyone who doesn't know what a panopticon is that big tower in the middle of prisons where they can just look out and see everyone.
Thank you. I had no idea what the fuck that was. I appreciate it.
It's one of my favorite words. Also one of my favorite bands.
It is actually my new favorite word too. Panopticon.
It's a
I like
great
that
word. Yeah. But if you ever see like a prison where it's like the cell blocks are down low, but there's that one big tower in the middle, that's a panopticon. Or
I like that a lot.
Yeah. And that's basically, so from up there, guards could keep an eye on each corridor below it. The exterior of the prison is basically built like a fucking fortress. It's big, it's imposing. Like if you see it, it's not welcoming.
It's not a friendly place.
Yeah. Like if you were a prisoner walking up to it for the first time, it's gotta fuck with you. Like, you know, you must see it and be like, well, there's no way I'm getting out of there, obviously.
Right.
But inside, it was surprisingly modern. Each cell had heat, plumbing, and a skylight, which, fun fact, would later be known as the Eye of God, which maybe isn't a fun fact and more, it's probably more haunting than anything. But
it's awful.
Yeah. It's not explicitly stated, but there was a lot of religious undertones to this experiment.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Now, the system of imprisonment that they came up with that was used at Eastern State Penitentiary became known as the Pennsylvania system, or the separate system, on account of all the separation.
Right.
Prisoners lived alone, worked alone, exercised alone. When prisoners were moved around, they were hooded so they can't see or interact with other inmates or learn the layout of the prison. And silence wasn't an option. You had to be quiet. It's like one of the only rules. Well, there's a lot of rules. It's prison, but you get what I'm saying.
Wait, I only have to be quiet. I can't wait to stab someone.
Good luck. How are you going to get to him?
I'll just start swinging wildly while I'm wearing my hood. I'm bound to hit something.
Eastern State Penitentiary is often described as a Quaker-inspired prison, seeing as how Quaker reform was kind of like shaping Philly around this time. But it wasn't just a religious project. Like I said, there was some religious undertones to it. It was also a product of Enlightenment era confidence, a fucking super strong confidence that institutions could be designed to improve society and that environment could reshape behavior, which, spoiler alert, it didn't. I mean, it did,
yes,
just not.
Prison brought to you by the same people who brought you oats.
Yeah, it did, just not in the way that they were hoping. So at the time of the prison's opening, Eastern State Penitentiary wasn't seen as like brutal or regressive, you know, because of the whole solitary confinement stuff. It was actually viewed as pretty innovative. Like, people loved this shit. Visitors from Europe toured it just like they do now. And other countries even studied it and adopted versions of it and its systems in their own prisons. It represented a very particular moment in American history where reformers believed crime could be addressed by means of isolation, discipline, and introspection, not, you know, now whether or not that belief held up in practice, well,
it kind of seems like they didn't even wait for it to be a successful plan before they did it.
oh yeah, no, they were just like, this sounds awesome. Fuck yeah. What could go wrong? Because, you know,
it looks badass, and panopticon, great word. I'm building 10.
Well, you know, let's put it this way. Humans notoriously do so well when alone.
Yeah.
So,
no, we're great at it.
Yeah. On paper, it sounds good, as most things do. In practice, it was basically psychological torture for the prisoners.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. When a prisoner arrived at Eastern State, he was hooded before being moved. Like I mentioned before, this was so the prisoner couldn't learn the layout of the prison, as well as preventing inmates from seeing one another, because the whole concept of separation had to be maintained as soon as a prisoner stepped inside the jail, or what's the point of it, right? Now, once inside, each man was then placed in an individual cell that was designed to basically be like their entire world. But unlike many other jails of this era, these cells were pretty big, at least comparatively. And like I said, surprisingly modern. They had heat, plumbing, eye of God skylight, and each cell had a small private exercise yard attached to it, which sounds nice until you remember that the core rule of the prison is total isolation. Prisoners here spent roughly 23 hours a day inside their cells. They ate in there, they slept in there, they even worked in there, doing one of a number of different jobs that included shoemaking, weaving, chair caning, or dyeing clothes. Even their exercise was done in isolation, because those nice private yards that were attached to their cells, they were enclosed by like super high concrete walls so that you couldn't see the person next to you or in front of you. Communication between inmates was strictly forbidden, and any attempt to even try and speak to your neighbors could result in some pretty harsh punishment, which we'll get into later. Visitors were limited, and in the early decades of the prison, letters and newspapers were prohibited. So there was just no contact with the outside. You had no idea what the fuck was going on with the world, people you knew, loved.
That's messed up. That is really messed up.
Yeah, religious practice was permitted though, but even that was very structured and highly controlled.
Right.
I don't really know what that means. I didn't really get into it. I'm assuming you just pray by yourself.
Or I kind of feel like maybe they tell you which religion you are now.
That could also be it too. I don't truly know.
Oh, you're Jewish? Well, not anymore.
Again, the theory behind this is that without distraction, noise, outside influence, a person would have no choice but to confront their own conscience. That's the ideal version of this anyway.
Right.
But it didn't take long before some people started to question whether this, whole level of isolation was actually doing what it was supposed to.
I'm going to guess it wasn't.
In 1833, just 4 years after the prison first opened, Gustave de Beaumont and Alexis de Tocqueville, I think is how you pronounce it, of France.
Tocqueville.
Yeah, that's what it is. Of France, examined the American penitentiary and did a little write-up of what they saw. Now, while they did acknowledge the ambition behind the system, they also warned that absolute solitary confinement could potentially, maybe, have some serious psychological consequences. And they did voice concerns that pushing isolation too far may not produce, penance, but mental breakdowns.
Yeah, that sounds far more likely.
Yeah. Then in 1842, Charles Dickens visited Eastern State during his tour of the U.S., and he didn't seem to care for what he saw either. In his book, American Notes for General Circulation, he described the system as, quote, rigid, strict, and hopeless solitary confinement, and argued that this kind of isolation was cruel, not because it left visible scars, but because it tampered with, quote, the mysteries of the brain. And that
oddly poignant statement coming from Charles Dickens.
And that the damage being done was internal and slow, the kind that might not show itself immediately, but would take its toll over time. And Dickens wasn't just pulling this stuff out of his ass. Like, he was there. He saw how people lived. He heard the silence. He understood the rules of the prison that he was at. But I don't know why he wanted to tour it to begin with. Maybe because he wanted to see how fucked up it was, or maybe he's just a weird dude. I don't know much about Charles Dickens.
All I know is that he was a terrible person to his wife.
I feel like most people back then were.
Yeah, I mean, it was the 1800s.
Yeah,
it's not really
pretty par for the course, I feel like. Yeah.
Though really no time has been great for women, I guess.
This is also true. Speaking of silence, that came, I feel like saying that right after Not a Good Time for Women. It was a crazy segue.
Speaking of silence. Now shut up and make a sandwich.
Yeah, no, but.
Oh, problematic.
But speaking of the silence, it would seem that around this time, prison administrators were having a hard time maintaining that silence because you're dealing with human beings, and human beings are social creatures that also, we tend to find ways to bend the rules.
Right. Well, I was also just thinking, like, prison now is full of totally crazy people. Mm-hmm. And when you've built a prison that is going to make you crazy anyway, like, come on.
Maybe not when it first opened, but I bet after a few years, it was just nonstop screaming from like,
that's what I was thinking.
It's just so, because everyone's going slightly like more and more insane as the isolation just keeps taking them.
Well, yeah, because the guards aren't even allowed to talk to you in that prison, right?
Oh, probably not. Well, I mean, they probably were, but it was probably just to fucking yell at you while they're beating the shit out of you for talking. But inmates attempted to communicate through like heating vents, tapping messages along walls and the plumbing pipes, any way they could, to try and find some sort of human connection. But administrators of the prison didn't care, and they treated these attempts not as some minor infraction, but pretty much like serious threats to the foundation of the entire system. And the punishments for something like this could escalate pretty quickly. Punishments for this would range from what is pretty much just enhanced solitary confinement, where they put you in a dark cell on reduced rations, which was usually just bread and water, all the way up to restraints, which included something known as the iron gag, which sounds exactly what it sounds like. It was a metal device placed in the mouth, and then it was secured behind the head. And like any good gag, it prevented speech, but if used improperly, it could cause some pretty serious injuries.
Yeah, you shouldn't put metal in someone's mouth.
Yeah, well, wouldn't you know, in 1834, an investigation was opened, and it focused on the warden, Samuel R. Wood, after allegations that a prisoner named Matthias McCumsey died after having the iron gag forced on him. Now, the official cause of death was recorded as him having passed away from a stroke, but witness testimony during the investigation highly suggests that the punishment may have contributed to his conditions, which... probably, but the warden was never convicted of any wrongdoing because, of course, and actually he remained the warden all the way up until he retired.
That makes sense. It's good to know that America hasn't changed at all.
Not in the least. But this incident matters because it kind of exposed something in the heart of the system that they were trying to do. Like a prison founded on the idea of promise of humane reform was already wrapped up in controversy for potentially lethal disciplinary practices within just a few years of operation. And it's important to note also that the iron gag wasn't made for Eastern State. This wasn't an Eastern State exclusive device. Restraints, dark cells, and physical punishments were super common in American prisons at the time. What made this whole incident and now Eastern State as a whole controversial wasn't that the punishment existed, but that it coexisted with all the rhetoric of moral uplift and humane reform, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot going on at this time too, I feel, because there was like a big religious enlightenment that was also going on at the time. And so I feel like people were just doing a lot of weird shit all at once.
Well, I mean, this whole idea, this whole prison system idea that it kind of came from that.
Yeah, it came from the Quakers.
Quakers and the Enlightenment era bullshit. Like, but hey, Sarge, just why don't we just ignore the iron gag controversy for a bit? Let's set aside Dickens.
I will ignore it if you'll describe it for me, because I need to know what this thing looks like.
Oh, you ever seen Saw?
Oh no. That's no good.
It's kind of like that. Here, hold on. I'll pull up a picture for you.
Well, I can Google it if you want. That way you don't have to try and show it through the camera. I gotta know what this thing looks like. Oh.
Yeah. It's not great.
Oh, I don't like that. I don't know what I was expecting, but this is worse.
Yeah. I mean, I said it's like Saw, but it's not as bad as like a reverse bear trap scenario, but it's also not as good as just not having it in your mouth.
Yeah, I feel like there's so many things that could go wrong with this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the guy died with one of these in his mouth.
Well, hold on. Allegedly. All right. Allegedly. Officially, he had a stroke.
Oh, okay.
Okay. But let's ignore the iron gag for a bit. Let's set aside, Dickens and those French dudes' criticisms about like mental health. There was a whole other problem starting to build inside the walls of Eastern State: overcrowding. So Eastern State was designed to hold 250 prisoners, and this whole system depends on that number because isolation only works if you have the space to enforce it. But,
Right.
Philly is an ever-growing city, so crime started going up, and in return, so did the prison population. By the 1870s, the inside of Eastern State started to look a lot different from the original blueprint. Roughly half of the prisoners were now sharing cells. And once that started happening, the whole premise of like the separate system kind of just falls apart.
Yeah.
If the inmates are living together, talking together, and just generally existing near each other, your whole system kind of collapses, which it did in 1913 when they officially abandoned the whole separate system for good. And from there, it was kind of all over.
So they did this separate system for like more than 100 years.
A little close to it, yeah.
I want to know what the first conversation was like when the first guy who hasn't been able to talk for 10 years finally gets a roommate.
Just gets a roommate.
Yeah.
I can't imagine it was great because I'm sure they probably still tried to enforce the whole silence thing. But also, I feel bad for the dude who's now that guy's roommate because he's walking in. This guy's already crazy. He's screaming and fucking having hallucinations and shit. And
he's like, don't sit there. That's where my friend sits.
yeah.
And been alone.
And I've been there. Like the cells are, they're comparatively bigger than what they would have been at the time, but you can't, 2 beds in there must have been fucking crazy hard.
Yeah.
It must have made it worse. Like now it was big for one person, but 2 people, it's fucking tiny.
Yeah. It's messed up.
Yeah.
It sounds messed up. I absolutely granted, I'm a pretty moral person. I just don't believe in doing bad shit all the time. But one of the main things that stops me from committing crimes is knowing that I would have to go to prison.
Yeah, it's a good deterrent, I feel like.
I'm not smart enough to get away with a crime. And so that's why I don't commit them.
That's pretty smart.
For instance, I would never steal from somebody or hurt somebody or take away their rights or something like that. But the thing that keeps me from robbing a bank is knowing that I'll go to jail for it because I'm not smart enough to get away with it. And I would not do well in prison.
Well, luckily we got rid of solitary confinement.
When I was in Puerto Rico, I was stuck in an elevator because we were stupid and had too many people in it. And the elevator was like, no, I don't think so. So we were stuck in there for a minute or two. And I was already sweating and nervous. So I can only imagine what would happen to me in a prison cell after 24 hours.
You probably end up being one of the early inmates at Eastern State. You just immediately start hallucinating.
Yeah, I'll come out like Lord of the Flies. I'll carved
Just break
I'll carved a
instantly.
spear out of a table leg.
Something, yeah.
War paint.
But yeah, but like I said, in 1913, they abandoned the separate system for good. But like I said, it was all over by then. The population of the prison exploded, and by the mid 1920s, Eastern State Penitentiary held around 1,700 inmates. Again,
What?
it was built for 250.
Bunk beds.
So, well, to try to accommodate all these new guests, Pennsylvania expanded the prison. Over time, new cell blocks were added, increasing from the original 7 up to 15 by the mid 1900s. Efficiency at this point is now the name of the game. It's no longer about the ideology.
Yeah, just get them in.
Yeah. So what started as this carefully engineered moral experiment ended up becoming just another prison. Like the talk of reform and all that bullshit, it still existed at Eastern State, but the day-to-day reality now is just containment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good plan.
And at this point, it's pretty much just an old crowded fortress trying to keep up with modern crime, and no one really gives a shit about it anymore. That is until the 1920s and 1930s when it started to gain a bit of newfound notoriety, when in 1929, Scarface himself, Al Capone, was sent to Eastern State Penitentiary on a concealed weapons charge of all things. Of all the things.
They have a concealed. There was a concealed weapons charge back then.
It was like an unregistered like the fire. It was just, he had a firearm, an illegal firearm. How's that?
Okay.
Concealed weapons charge, I guess, is kind of the easiest way to word it.
Well, it's good to know that guns have become much less of a problem now.
Yeah. Same thing with solitary confinement. We kind of solved both those problems.
Problems that we knew about over 100 years ago.
Yeah.
And we still have them.
Yeah. He wasn't there for long. I think he was sentenced to a year, but got out in 9 months for good behavior. But this became one of the more famous chapters in the prison's history for some reason. And his cell, since he was like fucking Al Capone, everyone knew who he was. His cell had he had carpeted floor, he had a radio, a lamp, table, they just
had a phone.
Dude, pretty much, yeah. Like they if you go there today, they have his cell or what they believe to be his cell, because they didn't keep records apparently,
right,
of where people stayed. So they kind of gathered where he was, and they redid his cell. They had oil paintings on the wall. He was living good for those 9 months that he was in there.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, but it wasn't just Capone that was reshaping the prison's image, because escapes started becoming a real problem.
Yeah,
at Old Eastern State.
That makes sense.
Yeah, just a few years before Capone's time in 1923, 6 prisoners managed to escape using a ladder that was built in sections and stored in footlockers.
Smooth.
Yeah, 5 of the men were eventually recaptured. One was found all the way in Hawaii, which fucking he was
awesome.
almost out.
He was so close to freedom at that point.
But one man, Leo Callahan, he was never found. It remains the only prisoner to have successfully escaped and never returned, which I think he was murdered by the other 5.
Yep, that would be my guess.
Yeah.
I know that, a lot of the times people who escape from prison are terrible, but there's always some part of me that's like, go, buddy, get out of there.
Yeah.
Stay out.
Like those dudes who fucking escaped Alcatraz. They think escaped out. I want nothing more than for them to be alive still.
Exactly.
They're not alive
probably,
still, but you know what I mean.
At this point, they're definitely dead.
Yeah.
But even though I know they're terrible people, a lot of people who escape from prison, I'm always like, maybe they get out and they live a good life from now on.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not the case.
Well, they kind of have to, or else they're just going to go back to prison.
Exactly. They're just going for the Canadian border.
Yeah. Then there's someone else's problem.
Yeah. Sorry, Canada, but this is what you get for Nickelback.
Yeah.
And Celine Dion.
Just, 60 years before. Then on April 3rd, 1945, 12 inmates escaped through a tunnel beneath the prison wall and under Fairmount Ave. Now, this escape is usually associated with Willie Sutton, who was a famous bank robber. I believe there's a quote associated with him where he's like, well, I rob banks because that's where the money is. Which is pretty funny.
His name does sound familiar.
But I think he just took credit for it because evidence suggests that the mastermind behind the tunnel was actually an inmate named Clarence Clintonist. I do not know how to pronounce. His nickname was Clinty. We're just gonna go with that.
Yeah, Clinty.
It really doesn't matter. What matters is this tunnel was fucking crazy elaborate. It had wood reinforcement like braces. It was lit with electricity, and
Love it.
yeah. And who the fuck knows what they did with the dirt that they tunneled out of it.
They just they put it in their pockets and then just kind of dumped it as they walked around.
I guess, but for a prison tunnel, it was like an engineering marvel. Like,
I'm impressed.
It's pretty intense. And then so now we're in the 1940s. We're gonna fast forward to 1960s, and things haven't gotten any better in tensions inside the prison due to it being an overcrowded, shittily retrofitted 19th century stone structure. Didn't make things great. And on January 31st, those tensions exploded into a full-blown riot. The riot reportedly began when an inmate named John Klausenberg tricked a guard into opening his cell for him. And then once he was out, he overpowered the guard. Other inmates joined in. Guards were taken hostage, and then fires were set all around the prison, especially in the prison records office. It escalated
even better.
pretty quickly. Authorities responded the best way they know how, which is pretty heavy-handed.
Yeah, just kill everybody.
Well, the tear gas was deployed. Armed officers stormed the prison. The riot was eventually suppressed. Obviously, it's still not going on. It only lasted a few hours. No one died, as far as I know, but the damage was pretty much done. And I don't mean like physical damage to the prison, but like to its reputation.
Reputational damage, yeah.
Because even at this time, the prison was considered relatively stable compared to like some other prisons in the country. But that riot in 1961 completely shattered that.
I kind of want to know how he tricked the guard.
Like, what did he say?
Is he just like, can you open the door to my prison cell, please? Why? Because I need to go into my prison cell? Oh, fair enough. Come on out.
Well, it was like, I'm sick. I need to go to the infirmary or something like that. Like, I'm sure it wasn't just like, hey, you want to open the door?
Yeah. We don't know that, though. We don't know that. People were more trustworthy back then.
True. But yeah, public confidence.
He was the first liar.
In 1961.
Yeah. It all went downhill after that.
Yeah. Now, public confidence in the prison was weakening, and so was the prison itself. Like, it's old as fuck. Maintenance costs were getting pretty high. Conditions were deteriorating, and the population was still way too high. And the state began to seriously consider, does it make sense to keep pouring money into an old fortress that didn't reflect like modern correctional standards? Considering that at this time, Pennsylvania already had like newer facilities that were way easier and way cheaper to operate. And in 1970, Pennsylvania officially ceased operations at Eastern State. Kinda. In 1971, it was used briefly as a city jail, but then it closed for good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but for more than half a century, roughly 75,000 people had passed through Eastern State. Some stayed briefly, some stayed for years, some went there under the promise of moral reform, and others arrived long after that idea had fucked off.
Right.
But regardless of when they arrived, they all were trapped behind the same walls. In the early years, that meant near total isolation, hooded movement, enforced silence. Later on, it meant overcrowding, tension, crumbling infrastructure, and a system trying to hold on to a philosophy it had long abandoned. The system changed, the population changed, but the foundation was always confinement inside thick stone walls to separate human beings from each other. What's interesting is that during its operation, Eastern State was controversial for a lot of things, all of which we covered. But one thing it wasn't was ghosts. That part of the story comes later, and that is where we're going to pick up part 2 and talk about the hauntings of Eastern State.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. I love a good haunted prison. Also, I want to clarify, I spoke earlier about prison sex and making a joke. I wasn't talking about the bad kind. I was talking about the consensual kind.
Okay, sure. Yep.
Yeah, the bad kind, that's awful. I'm talking about two men who find love behind bars.
I think there's a Tool song about that.
Yeah, man. Like, I've been to an old shut down prison.
Yeah.
When I was in the Army, we did training in one.
Well, that makes
And
sense.
let me tell you,
that seems like a good spot for trading purposes. I feel like.
horrifying place.
Oh yeah, it's not great.
Yeah, horrifying. Like we had to sleep in the the dining area.
It's probably
We had to set up cots. And at night we were kind of allowed to, like, if we wanted to, we could just sort of walk around and check stuff out. And fuck my life, that was terrifying.
Do you remember where it was?
Real scary.
Where was it?
I want to say it was Bridgewater State.
Okay.
So it was
wasn't that like a
prison
psychiatric place?
for the mentally insane was what it was called back in the day.
Okay, so yeah,
I
so
think
that's what I'm
where I
thinking
was.
of,
I'm pretty sure. But it was horrifying and fun, but horrifying.
Yeah. I mean, being in abandoned places, no matter what, is always fun. Is it always
It's always cool. Yeah. There was one room we found that had like just prisoner records like lying on the ground.
Fuck yeah, dude.
Yeah, it was crazy. But yeah, like I am so excited. I love a good haunted prison.
Yeah. But how do you feel about Eastern State? It kind of sucks. It wasn't a good place.
It sounds terrible. It sounds exactly as bad as I thought it would be.
Yeah. The thing is, like, with this, like, back then, like, when it was like mostly like the isolation stuff, because isolation stuff didn't last very long. It ended, like I said, in 1913. But like back then, psychology wasn't like super big at the time.
Yeah.
So there's no like, we don't know what happened to we can only assume what happened to the prisoners.
I mean, they were only
there.
like, at that point, they were only like, what, 40 years away from phrenology?
Yeah. So like I didn't include any like, these people fucking went insane and just started doing crazy shit, which we can just assume they did. Like if you're isolated for that long, you're going to have auditory hallucinations. You're going to see shit. You're going to go crazy. Like I said, after the first like 4 years, I bet everyone in that prison was just screaming
nuts.
Like,
yeah,
just
either screaming audibly or screaming inside their own head.
Yeah, something, dude. Like it couldn't have been great.
Yeah,
for those
that's
involved.
awful.
And then, yeah, like I said, once they stopped that whole isolation thing, by then it was just overcrowded and just crumbling infrastructure. Like nothing about this prison was good, but it like set a standard for what prison should be for like a long time, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And the fact that
I
other
wasn't
countries,
even kidding about the Russian system either. It's called the Black Dolphin.
well, they probably fucking stole it from this.
Yeah, probably. I mean, the prisoners are moved around in stress positions, so they're bent over. They're not allowed to speak. I believe they're blindfolded anytime they move them.
Yeah.
And Russia is not got a great reputation. There's a lot of cannibalism for a modern country.
No, I feel like they're doing all right.
Yeah, no, they're doing great.
Yeah. Nothing crazy ever.
Very
happened.
peaceful.
Okay.
And no one ever falls off of a balcony.
Yeah. Or gets polonium poisoning.
It was not polonium. He had cold.
Yeah. All right, but yeah, but that's Eastern State. It sucks. It's not great. But
Terrible.
But also apparently, considering how most of it was isolation, not a lot of murders or anything. Like there wasn't a lot of like crazy. There were probably suicides and stuff. Which I mean, there definitely was. But there wasn't a lot of like violence besides the riot and shit like that. Which is I feel like it's
because
crazy.
it must have been really difficult in the early days, obviously, to do any kind of violence. But I think by the end of it, by the time that prison was closing, like it's so miserable. I imagine they're just kind of like, well, we're in this together.
Yeah. Or it was just so packed that you couldn't lift your arm up to stab anyone. It's just, arms are stuck by
Everybody's
yourself.
just kicking each other's shins.
Yeah. Like you just couldn't fucking move considering it was
Right.
1,700 people. What is that? That's like 6 times more than what should be in there.
Yeah. Cause you said it went from 7 buildings to 15. So
Yeah.
a little bit more than double the size, but way more prisoners.
Yeah. Because by that logic, it should only fit 500 people.
Right. Insane.
Yeah. It's bananas. All right. Yeah. So that's it. Next week, we'll go over hauntings. Well, like there's different experiences people have in different sections. So we'll cover all those and, maybe I'll find some EVPs or something online. We can listen to some shit.
Yeah. I'm going to look up that full body opparition thing.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy. But yeah, is there anything you got any questions, concerns, anything you want to add before we wrap this up?
No. Really interesting. I had, as you were talking, I remembered I'd heard like a little bit, but you definitely like explained it better than I knew for sure. I'd heard a little bit about the Quaker system, and
Yeah.
it must have been Eastern State that they were talking about, because I very much remember the spoke. What was it? The hub and spoke. I very much remember that.
Yeah, because if you look at it from top down, you'll see what I'm talking. I'm gonna post pictures of stuff. Oh, one thing I didn't mention. I wish I had brought this up earlier, because by now no one's listening anymore. There was a like an unofficial inmate at the prison, and it was a dog. He even had a inmate number and stuff like that. I forget his name, but I'll try and figure it out, and I'll mention.
The most adorable prisoner.
Yeah, it was like a black lab. It was pretty cool.
Poor guy.
No, he just hung out, like he just chilled with everyone. Like it was pretty cool. I don't know.
He's everybody's friend.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it. Sarge, you got anything you want to plug before we sign off?
Yeah, if you ever go to Puerto Rico, go to El Batey. That bar is the coolest place I've ever been to. It's in Old San Juan.
All right. Go do that. Also, go to the Pork Highway that our buddy from
yeah, you got to go to the Pork Highway.
Cafe.
I'm probably going to have to go back in October, and I'm definitely going to Pork Highway then.
Yeah. All right. And if you want to follow Sarge, you can find all of his social media on our Instagram at Cryptid Cocktail. Just follow the link, and you can find where you can follow him, or just Google Sarge the Destroyer.
Yeah, you'll find me.
Yeah. Follow us on TikTok, Cryptid Cocktail Party. Leave us a 5-star rating review. It helps a lot. Definitely gets the show into more people's ears. And I think with that out of the way, Sarge, do you want to say goodbye and I love you to the audience?
Hey, goodbye. And I love you. Don't go to jail.